I used to envy, be jealous, live through comparisons. I wanted to be everyone but me. I didn't want to be Georgia. I wanted to be Emma Watson, Angelina Jolie, Michelle Obama, Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, my best friend, the pretty girl in my class. I wanted to be everyone but me because they were always better than me in some way, and I could not live up to that. I could not be as good as they were. Beauty, intelligence, confidence, money, fame, happiness, relationships, courage, they all were liked. I felt I wasn't. I was on autopilot of thought processes that constantly compared myself to everybody. It made me feel good about myself, and at the same time made me feel awful about myself. I wanted to be the best, but I didn't actually actively work on myself to become better. I would just sit and wallow and in this misery of feeling like I could never compare to anybody else. That everyone was above me and I perceived myself as beneath everyone. See all of those people I would idolize and at one point was literally everybody, because I saw myself as so low compared to literally everybody else, and I have no idea why. This video is not about me making a pity party of myself. It's about realizing past thought processes and patterns that actually most people can relate to. Maybe not to the extent, but in one way or another, as humans, comparison is a normal thing. Because comparison and jealousy is a natural process that we would have used back in the day, in our survival stages, to weigh up to see if a situation or a person or an animal was dangerous or not. I've taken this to an extreme, and this is my own past case is a very good example of taking it way to the extreme, because we've evolved way too fast for our minds and our bodies to keep up. It's a twisted mindset, because when you see those people that you compare yourself to performing lesser than you think is the best that they can do, you feel better about your situation. If they're doing worse off, you end up feeling better. And saying it out loud seems almost psychotic. Why as humans do we want others to fail? This was my thought process for a very long time. My name is Georgia, and here today I'm talking about envy and jealousy and how this was my mindset in the past, and just my story and how this relates to everything. So I'm just sharing my past experience. None of this is like what I say is my own experience and my own opinion, and you can take it however way you want. Feel free to subscribe, like this video, and comment if you can relate, or if you have any advice about how maybe you got out of this thought process or the way that you see it, I guess, because not everyone feels like this. Yeah, I hope not anyway. Let's take a time scale, because I would say this started like when I just started to hit puberty, as in the teens, like 12 years old, 13, 12, the usual age where people start to question themselves, their bodies, their surroundings. So yeah, I felt very inferior to pretty much everyone, and it was like a living hell that I didn't even realize I was living in for like, I want to say about at least 8-9 years of my life, that I didn't even question. I didn't even question my own thought processes. I just thought that's the way it is, and that's how I see the world, and I didn't question it. Now I'm completely different, constantly comparing myself and beating myself up internally. Like, how is that a nice way to live? I had to train my mind not to do this, and it took a while, like a long time, but the first step was awareness that I was even doing this, but I was kind of forced into that awareness through like eating disorders and realizing, okay, this actually is not healthy. And I succeeded in reshaping my thought processes, and that is a very oversimplification of the process. Like right now I've trained my mind quite well to not be comparing myself to people, and if I do, it's not as a way to put myself down or feel like I'm not doing enough. It's to like give me inspiration and realize that actually people go through struggles too. Like everything that people idolize, I try not to idolize anybody anymore because it puts them on a pedestal. And so when we experience envy, it's important to just acknowledge that it's happening. That's what I said before, awareness. So I go down my timeline with envy. I'd say it started again when I was like 12 years old, when I was just going into year 7 or grade 7 in the US. Maybe it's grade 8, I don't know. But around that time. First way it showed up was comparison and envy in the physical appearances and beauty standards. Looking back now, it genuinely seems very pointless to be always looking outwards at other people and making judgments against myself. There's no room for me to have my own thoughts of myself, thoughts about how I actually wanted to express myself. The only room was to critique myself and make judgments and adjustments based on what would seemingly make me be liked the most. And I was teased for my height because I was quite small. I was pretty much the smallest person in my class for a very long time. Like, I was so small. I couldn't walk up to a group of people without them mentioning my height or putting their elbow on my shoulder or just saying like, how does it feel to be small? It didn't get to me, like it wasn't a big deal. But when people are doing it like at least 3 times a day, it kind of gets to you at some point. It was also the case with my freckles. I literally wanted to get rid of my freckles so much because people would constantly be mocking me for my freckles, and I have no idea why. I guess it's because nobody else seemed to have freckles apart from me and my brother. Like, I wanted to stay out of the sun because I didn't want to gain more freckles, and I wanted to cover my freckles up with makeup. And when I found out that foundation and makeup was a thing, I was like, my problem is solved. But my god, no, that was so wrong. I love my freckles now, and it's not something that people mock anymore. Well, people don't really mock me anyway. They just tend to think I'm crazy with what I'm doing with my life. But yeah. So also my surname. So I would say my height, my freckles, and my surname as a kid I was just very mocked for. My surname is Peck, and people would just, every time someone would say like, oh, what's your surname? Like maybe a teacher's saying like, what's your surname? I would like try and say it in the quietest voice possible because I didn't want anyone to know my surname because they would instantly pick it up and make a joke about it, which is fine. But again, it's like that constant repetition and drilling it into my head that like my surname's bad. So that happened throughout primary and secondary school, and I was more envious and jealous of physical appearances between like 10 and 16. So much so that I developed like multiple eating disorders, anorexia, orthorexia, also body dysmorphia, which I've also made a video about. I'll put a card up here, so I won't go into it. The envy post high school, or secondary school as we call it in England, it developed into deeper than physical appearances. At this stage, I was probably about 16, and it developed deeper into like more about academia, school studies, skills, relationships. And first of all, I'm quite a competitive person, but when it's a competition with just you and someone else without them realizing, when it gets a bit toxic. I would be envious and resent the person who got better grades than me, and as a high achiever in terms of academics, apart from maths, I kind of went downhill in maths, but I would just be fighting for the top grades in all of my classes throughout my final years in education. I think my parents' pressure came into this, and I don't blame them, because they didn't realise how their words or actions affected me. I knew they wanted me to do really well. I was already putting in loads of pressure on myself anyway, so it was just like an added pressure. Those people who were achieving higher grades meant that I wasn't being the best, and I wanted their grades. I wanted their brain power because mine wasn't up to their level. And this drove me mad. Fine art as well as academic subjects. With art and just academics in general, I was competing with just a few particular people. I could just never seem to keep up with them. And I would genuinely do about 24 hours of extra work each week. Maybe not 24, maybe like 17 hours of extra work each week with my subjects combined, and I would keep track of them. I honestly have so many notes in my phone of like keeping track of the hours that I did extra. Like, instead of going out and making friends, I would just sit in the library or in my classrooms and do extra work and revise and get my grades perfect. But to what end? Why was I doing this? So I could be liked by people? I could finally be recognized? Bookworm in the corner of the room? I guess so. I wanted to be liked and recognized so much, and I felt that everyone else was doing that. Everyone else was better than me, and I was so jealous. I envied people's social skills and especially their confidence, because I had almost zero confidence. That one person who walks into your classroom who just lights up the room and everyone just smiles and he makes jokes and he's just like so easy to get on, and he was just loved by everyone. His charisma, his confidence, and I wanted that. I wanted to be that person who would walk into the room and just light it up. Just thought that could never happen. I was just stuck in my little introverted, little quiet, envious, jealous bubble of my mind, and I felt like a prisoner. I'm so incredibly glad to be free from now. I could see the way people interacted with each other, and I just felt I didn't have that. I didn't have friends who needed me. I always needed other people and they didn't need me, and I would see two best friends or a group of friends who would be laughing and joking and having a good time and making memories, and I feel like I'm missing out. But that was totally on me, because my own lack of self-worth and confidence meant that I felt that everyone was judging me and hating me. My own insecurities would literally drive me away from having friendships as a social, and I would just miss out on that because of my own self, feeling like I'm not good enough to be someone's friend. It was like college, and then right now I literally have no envy of those things as I did as a kid anymore. And I sort of realised what the turning point was I realised it just wasn't helping me in any way. In fact, it was making my life horrible. Showing myself with these thoughts, and I realised I needed to actually develop. I started listening to podcasts and reading books, and I realised I needed to develop, well, when I say books, I mean non-fiction. I was always reading fiction books as a kid, more like self-help books and things like that. And I realised I actually needed to develop my own sense of person, what success is to me and what beauty is to me, even if it is even a thing, because it's so subjective, and or how I communicated with people, how I developed my own relationships and friendships and building up confidence. I'm to the point where I could honestly walk up to anybody. I could go to a party and just walk up to anybody and start a conversation and feel no awkwardness, have no fear that they're judging me, because even though they are, because as humans we judge, it's a natural thing. I don't fear the judgment. Like, I don't care. I feel I need to change myself or prove myself to anybody anymore. Yeah, so what changed? Well, I got out of the education system for one. In the UK, it's not the nicest place to be, honestly, and thanks to a certain virus that cut education short for my year, I decided to go solo travelling and to get out of the UK and just see things from a different perspective in a different environment. And I realised a lot about myself, and it wasn't nice. Like, it was not nice to realise these things about myself. I noticed my thoughts for once. I noticed the way I held myself, the way I would talk to people responded to me, and my thoughts, my passions, what mattered to me only, without the input of my usual society and surround. I got out of that environment that I was constantly in. My school, my tiny town, or even, it's not even a town, it's a village, and I noticed that I desperately needed approval from. It was scary to just trust my own instincts and to trust what was important to me rather than everybody else. The whole of 2020 I made such massive mistakes but there were mistakes that I've learned from and mistakes that I needed to go through. And this year I keep making mistakes, but that's a normal part of life. I think I make a lot of mistakes because I take a lot of risks. It's all a learning point, I guess. I've learned so incredibly much, and I can't even believe how much has happened in the last 2 years, even